Hello and welcome to Love and Flowers and You with Dr. Jennifer Love in Los Angeles, Dr. Michelle Flowers in Chicago, and I'm international journalist Marina Hutchinson in Atlanta. Dr. Love and Dr. Flowers are medical doctors who have more than 30 combined years of practice as psychiatrists. They've worked with thousands of patients in their busy practices, and with my journalistic input, they hope to share what they have learned with others who may not have the time or money or access to speak to an expert. Both doctors have full practices with no time to take on extra patients, and this is a way to share their knowledge with others. The show is not intended to provide medical advice. It is a place for learning about and sharing human experiences, a place where you will laugh, learn, and be inspired to become your best self. In their offices, Michelle and Jennifer are physicians. Here they are your friends. And today's topic, we're going to start out with the why of why we're doing this show. So I'll start with myself, and I working as a journalist at CNN, I always had access to all these different books about how to change your brain, change your life, improve, and I've always been interested in that. So at CNN, I actually created a show called Behind the Mind, where I interviewed doctors from around the world and got information from them about different topics on relationships and things like that. And in fact, when I did that show, it increased ratings sixfold over CNN's top show at that time. So I was really,
Wow.
I was really enthused about it, and we're going to continue. And guess what happened? That was August of 2001, and then September 9/11 happened. So then CNN went all to covering the disaster and the war against terror, and my show went out the window. So this is my phoenix of this show, because I think it's still an important international conversation that we should have, and now the internet gives us the ability to do that. And so then I was in this search for the great doctor, and it's hard to find a good doctor that's interesting and has a good character. So I went on this search for a doctor that could work with me on this show, and I approached, I did a lot of research and asked all these doctors, and then came upon Jennifer Farrell. And so I reached out to her, and Jennifer, it's your turn to say what happens with the story here.
Yeah, so you reached out to me and you wanted to do this show, and here I am, this total introvert, and it was this relationship show, and I was going through this horrible divorce. That's why I was a Farrell, right? And I said no. I said I just can't, and I was so overwhelmed that, like, I was in this mode for years and years and years of just head down and just work and just go and work and don't look up. I was paying spousal support. My ex had debt that I had to pay off that I never knew about, and it was just, I couldn't take on the stress. Like, for me, I'm such an introvert. The idea of going on television, it just almost like put me in a panic. I'm happiest like in the corner. They always say don't put baby in the corner. Like, I'll go in the corner. Like, just I'll be back there, and I want to observe and watch what's going on, but I've never wanted to stand out. So you terrified me, and that was years ago. And at that time I said no to you.
And then after that, what happened? How did we reconnect?
Yeah, so interesting. So over the years, I've been contacted to go on various shows, and I'd been on the Dr. Phil show, and I'd been contacted by the doctors, but I didn't really like my first experience on national television. So I was saying no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. And I knew that every time I said no, someone else went on and, did it for me. I think the defining moment for me was 2016. And that election for me was transformative, because it really kind of woke me up. And I started thinking, with the first Women's March and everything, well, what is my voice actually? I'm not a marcher by nature, I'm an introvert, right? I want to be in the corner. But what is my voice? And well, I knew what my voice is. And so I just thought, okay, well, maybe I need to start using it. And it was so crazy, because like just a few weeks later, my phone rang, and it was the doctors in LA, that TV show, the Emmy Award winning TV show. And they wanted me to come on and talk about the problem with abuse of stimulant drugs, like ADD medications. And I was like, okay, well, this is it. So I said yes, and immediately went into a panic. And so the day before filming, I was driving over to kind of get ready. And I thought, you know why I'm here? This actually started with Marina Hutchinson. And I had lost Oliver. It's been years. I want to say it had been 5-6 years at that point since we've been in contact, maybe 4 or 5. And I had lost all my contacts on my iPhone. And so I was looking for like your email address, like the whole thing had crashed. I had nothing saved in there. But when I put your name in, this phone number popped up. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. So I sent you a text. I sent you a text to say thank you. I'm like, you have no idea who I am. You probably don't remember me at all, but you planted the seed in me years ago. And now I'm on my way to do this show. And I just said thank you. And I just kind of happy holidays and sent it off. And then you responded immediately. And that really started communication. And what I loved about that is you not only said, of course, I remember you. How are you? You jumped into this mentoring role. You had no idea probably how terrified I was at that time. How confident do you feel? What are you wearing? Don't let them make you feel like crazy with your hair sticking all over the place. You do you. Like, you text coached me all that afternoon and all that following morning until we filmed. And then afterwards, when I was like, oh, I don't know how it went, and I was in that haze of just oblivion, you like totally encouraged me. You're like, I know you were awesome. I know you did great. We need to do a project. And so that planted another seed.
And then we come to how Michelle came into this story.
So while all of that was happening with you guys, I was off in my little private practice office and mothering my children, 3 then in 2015 became 4. And I am passionate about believing in people, as you are, both of you, and really helping them see what they're capable of. Because I believe that we as a society are going to be much better off when everybody's living their purpose. And I was doing this in this small way in my office. I have gotten to know patients, some of them for 17 years now. And it's about finding out who they are and uncovering their potential and then helping them reach that and then growing even further than they thought they could. And I'm thinking, how can I do this in a bigger way? I really want to do this in a bigger way. So the Amen Clinic in Bannockburn opened up 10 minutes from my office in Deerfield. And I went to see how do you do this? How do you reach more people and learn? Because I think one of the best ways to learn is to go on an adventure and see somebody who's already doing what you wish to be doing. And Dr. Amen reaches hundreds of thousands of people. And so shortly after that, I went to the doctor's retreat where I met Dr. Jennifer, and she said, I have this friend who wants to do this project. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to work with awesome women lighting other people's fires.
Well, before we actually came up with the idea for a documentary series that weekend, you and I sat down and something clicked. And we started having this conversation about men and women, because I had complimented, one of our, the female physicians we work with had actually been interviewed on CNN. And when it aired, I'd sent her an email and told her how brilliant she was. But when we saw her at the meeting, she walked by us when we were chatting. And I said, again, like how fabulous she was. And her response was, oh, I hated that. I felt like such an idiot. And it's like I just got hit in the head, because she was brilliant and she was downplaying it. And I thought, I did the same thing when I was on The Doctors. And it was a tiny little segment. I mean, it's like a 5-minute, they edit you down to like nothing. But everyone kept saying how great it was. And I was like, oh, I was shaking, which is true. I was completely shaking. You can't see it on camera, but I was just like an earthquake from like the waist down. My knees were knocking, and on camera, I'm just like smooth as glass. But I was very self-critical. And I thought, what is it about women, and if you tell a man you did great, they say thank you. And tell one of us, with how many years of higher education, you did a great job on this, and we just start minimizing. And that started our conversation on women and how we grow and develop, where our strengths are, and how we can be so confident in one area like medicine and then completely unconfident in another area, which for us actually is like media and all of that. And so it's kind of ironic how this story has taken us to media, but it started with how our brains change and what we know now that we wish we knew when we were younger. And that brought us to the first step of that project of what I wish I knew when I was 22.
So we want to discuss the goals of the show. What are the objectives for each of us in doing this show? And so we'll start with you, Michelle. What are your objectives in the show?
The reason I'm doing this is because, as Britt Nicole says in her song, Set the World on Fire, I want to set the world on fire in a really positive way. And I think one candle at a time, and each of those candles lighting another candle. And that's how we make the world a lighter place instead of a darker place. And so I want just people to tune in and listen. And the podcast for me is, what are the talents that you have that you're not using to do this? Because we have to do it together. It's a group project, loving the world and loving each other and making it a happier place. And so Irma Bombeck has this quote about, at the end of my life, I want to stand before God. And when he says, did you use all the talents that I gave you? I want to be able to say yes. And so that's,
I love that. And this is something you guys may not know about me, that my maiden name is Kolbe, and my great uncle is actually a saint, Saint Maximilian Kolbe. And what he has great stories I can tell you about, but one of his teachings was that that's what we're supposed to do, is to use our gifts. That's what God wants us to do, is use our gifts. And that's the important goal in our lives. So I love that you said that, because I've always felt that calling to use my gift. And so then we'll move to you, Jennifer. What are your goals?
Well, I just now want to have a podcast on Marina Hutchinson, because this is fascinating. Did I ever tell you my great uncle was a saint? Can we just have a moment to recover? I think, and I'm listening to Michelle and how brilliant you sound when you're talking about your goals. And I'm just thinking, I want you to be my psychiatrist. For me, this is a process. The two of you know me very well. I'm very introverted, and, I don't like putting myself out there at all, but I've been in this box, that's this 10 by 14 foot box. And I spend 10, 11 hours a day there, and it's exhausting and it's unhealthy. And I need to get out of the box, but literally, but also quite figuratively. I love my box. I love what I do in it. I make my living in my box. I'm successful in my box. I help people. My calling in life is fulfilled in this 10 by 14 foot box where I sit every day. But I wonder, for me, what happens in life when I'm willing to have the courage to step outside of that box. And I think, all of us at some point, we go through this process of reevaluating, who am I and what is my purpose? And, sometimes, at least in our field in medicine, you get on this conveyor belt where you just get on and you just keep going and keep going and keep going. And you forget that you actually have options, because it's like, nope, I went to college and then I applied to med school, and then I had to go to med school for 4 years, and then I had to apply to residency, and then I did my internship and this and fellowship. And it's just, you just go and take the next step. And, I was talking with one of my patients the other day, and I use this really dumb analogy. I mean, I'm really good at lame analogies. And, I was talking about how life is kind of like snorkeling. But, like when you're out snorkeling, you're looking down, there's all this stuff, and you're just so engaged with the color and the movement and everything. But every once in a while, you have to stop and look up and ground yourself. Like, where's the land, or where's my boat? And you have to kind of reassess and make sure you haven't gone too far away from who you are. And, we do this throughout life. I'm doing this in my life currently, like who am I and where do I want to be and how am I going to reground myself kind of in the middle of life. And so this podcast is a way of, if I'm going to step out of this box, what does it look like? Am I brave enough to do this? And, to take what I do in that box and open it up for anyone to listen to. So it's a little scary, but at the same thing, I think the two of you have really kind of convinced me that this is a really natural progression.
It is a natural progression. I'm sure people that are watching or listening will be surprised to know that you're an introvert, because you come off like a very competent, successful, intelligent person with so much to share with the world.
Well, introverts can be competent and successful and be kind, but we also want to, like, at the end of this, like, I just want to go, like, close all the doors and not talk to anyone for like 4 hours.
But you don't seem, I guess, like the stereotypical idea that I would have in my head of an introvert. An introvert would not be on camera like you are. An introvert would do what you did when you first met me and say no. Okay.
Yes. And that's, so one of the ways that I wanted to shift out of my box is I want to write books. And I've been working with a literary agent, putting out book proposals, and the feedback from all these main publishers is, we're not going to touch this unless she has 100,000 followers on social media. And he said, well, you need to get on social media. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just like Instagram. We have to hire a millennial to like learn how to do all this. But he said to me, I've lost a lot of authors who are introverted, who don't want to put themselves out there. And today's authors, the way that writing has changed is you have to be willing to put yourself out there to be a writer. So the agent I'm using has been losing his introverted writers. And so, I have to think, if this is a goal, if I don't want to spend my entire career sitting in a 10 by 14 box, if I want my voice to be bigger, even if I want to do it on paper, which is comfortable for an introvert, because I can write a book in my pajamas and I don't have to put on makeup or anything, but you still have to be out there and have a presence. And so I have to use my voice, literally. I have to learn to use my voice. And so here we are.
And you know what, when you mentioned about being in the box, it makes me think of one of my favorite quotes. And I think it's also in a song. And it says, we live our lives in locks and chains, never realizing we have the key. And I think you will see when you get out of your box, you will feel so much different. And I mean, the box has a place. It's a learning place. It has a place in your life. But when you get out of the box, you will be so happy. And another analogy I have, I think I've come to understand, is that you have to listen to your heart and to listen to your feelings. And when you are unhappy somewhere, it's like your heart is your compass. Your happiness is your compass. And it is time. It is a sign that you need to change directions. You're shaking your head, Michelle. Give me your thoughts.
I think it's absolutely true. There are two things that you said that I want to comment on. And one is this idea that you get out of a box. And I see this as sort of like those Russian nesting dolls, but boxes. You get out of one box and then you're happily in this bigger box until that box becomes confining. And then you need to find another key. This is something that I learned in my 30s. I wasn't getting out of the box. I was getting out of the box into a bigger box, but then there's still a bigger box after that. And your job, I think, is to keep searching for those keys.
Exactly. And you may have, who knows, like 8 boxes before you finally get out into the real you, the real life that you want to live.
I'm feeling uncomfortably challenged on my own podcast.
You say that. I don't know why you say that. Because this is super, so if here's extrovert, 100% extrovert, and here's introvert, 100% introvert, I'm probably around here. I love being with other people, and I love learning about them and hearing about them, and I love seeing them light their candles, and I love seeing them find their keys and getting out of their box. I love that. Nothing is more rewarding to me than that. And but this podcast,
I sometimes like being around other people. I like being around the two of you, and I'm pretending that's all who's here right now. It's just us three.
Yeah. But this podcast is still super challenging for me because while I love being around other people, I think it's for anybody, that vulnerability, putting yourself out there. There's a reason Brene Brown's talk on vulnerability is one of the top 5 TED Talks of all time. She's a magnificent storyteller, but also it resonates with each of us. Like, okay, I have to be brave. I have to have courage and put myself out there. And that is the truth. If that is absolute truth, that if you want to look back at your life and say, yes, God, I used all the talents that you gave me, you're going to have to be vulnerable and be brave.
Well, that's why I'm here, because both of you know last year my word of the year was courage. And I spent a whole year thinking about if my instinct was to say no to something, to challenge myself and say, wait, what's holding me back? Is it fear? And if my answer was yes, then I had to kind of figure out a way to push through. And that's how I ended up agreeing to do a documentary series and a podcast and all these other things.
I'm really glad you did.
I think it's going to benefit the whole world. And that brings us back to our goal. And I always felt there's so much knowledge. If people only knew, if young girls only knew certain things, if older people only knew just how much better their lives would be. And if you could just get up in the morning and just have, like, I always thought it'd be great to have a 1-800, how should I do this? Or why should I do this? Or, and then sometimes about personal questions, should I quit my job? Should, I leave my husband? Should I leave my boyfriend? How should I repair this relationship? So, you guys sharing this with the world is so valuable. And given that you guys both have such busy practices and don't have time for more clients, this is a very effective way. And that's something Michelle had mentioned to me, that she has a busy practice and she'd like to share her knowledge. I thought this is a perfect way to do it. So, you're using this time, but it's going out to people in China, in India, in Canada, in Australia, everywhere. People were able to hear what you guys have weaned from thousands of hours of learning, both, in the office and in school.
Well, and we get the chance to girl talk.
Yes.
If someone comes into my office, we're very professional but we don't share our stories. Our focus is on the person who's paying us to be sitting in front of us, and as it should be. And what I like about this is it gives us kind of the opportunity to kind of girl talk with people who have these questions. And, we have all this scientific knowledge and all this experience, but to kind of just let it out in a way that feels a little more real than just maybe a little less professional and just a little more free-flowing.
Approachable and layman. So any last thoughts before we run out of time?
That we're excited to meet you and hear and light your candles.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, this is really going to be a project that grows every month and every year. It's going to be a worldwide good deed because there's so many people that really need to hear your voices and your advice. And we're going to be here to answer all the questions for people, no matter where they are or what their situation in life is, and hopefully hear them say, thank you. That was really useful. It really helped me when I needed it most.
And if you have any questions on this topic or others you want answers or possible solutions for, email us at loveandflowersandyou@gmail.com. So it is all spelled out. Love, Love, and AND, flowers, and you @gmail.com. loveandflowersandyou@gmail.com. That's the email. And please don't forget to subscribe and download the podcast so you don't miss out on any of this life-transforming information. Tune in to our next episode as Michelle and Jennifer continue guiding you to discover your own light and give you the tools on your path to a more fulfilling life.